Easy rider on the highway, station wagon going slow, windows open, you are basking in the bluegrass radio. It is easy now to see you with your hand out on the wind. I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Pink azaleas by your driveway, shade our leisurely goodbyes. In your terry cotton sweater, with your arms sweeping the sky. It was then I had a knowing. You were waving till the bend. I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Shadow to the coast, past the surf and whitewash beaches, under cypress trees and smoke, carved like lovers into driftwood. On this moment I depend. I keep this folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget. Folded at the corner so that I could not forget.
Days, all those years ago that never fade away, and I remember your face when you hit the ground. I can't recall the time and place on a midnight walk through the old streets, trying to turn back the clock to the days of old. Back to the days when all the things we knew were made of gold. As the world moves on, time sings a song. In the old neighborhood, as the clock strikes one, the memory lives just as it stood, like a quiet dream. Shadows of that time are cast beneath the streetlight beam. As the world moves on, time sings a song. Don't cry, don't cry. As the days move along, you can remember their song.
Bye.